Hi, everybody, and welcome to this behind-the-scenes session about Project Spyglass with Contentstack and Vaultec. I am going to hand over the mic to Wim to introduce us and set the stage.
Yes, thank you, Varya. Yeah, also from my end, let's say a very warm welcome to everybody here. We're also recording this session, so if you want to see this again, you just need to rewind and start all over again. So let me introduce our speakers or presenters from the team at Vaultec. We have Danielle and Jason, and then from our end, we will be Ben and Wim, myself, and Varya is our host for today. Now that we understood who we are, let's talk about why we are here. So I'm really excited about this part because this is going to be the technical approach. So I'm a little bit out of my league here as a salesperson. But the great thing about Project Spyglass is that it is a great example of how a digital agency like Vaultec and a modern technology vendor like Contentstack have collaborated between different teams across different companies and build an augmented reality app within 4 weeks from start to finish. It's a really great example of what modern technology can do for us. As I said, I'm not technical, but what has struck me at my time here at Contentstack is how amazingly fast both business and technical teams can collaborate and launch new initiatives within a really short amount of time. And it's every time I get exposed to new experiences that our customers have, I'm just struck with awe. It's really a testament and a proof of how, if you're not constrained by, let's say, legacy or monolithic technology, new agile technology is actually helping you to build these types of proof of concepts very quickly. So our aim and our goal for today is inspiration and maybe help you think differently about new initiatives you may have, and maybe take the opportunity also to think about, okay, maybe this was with existing technology very hard, but what would your next Project Spyglass be? So with that being said, I think we can get into our video on Project Spyglass, Varya.
Yes, let me set the stage for what we're really talking about here. I will play this video. Just give me 1 second to cue it up.
Contentstack partnered with Vaultec to make a web-based augmented reality proof of concept in 4 weeks. Our small team focused on retail skincare products and particularly educating users at 3 points in a product's life cycle. First, can we layer information in the store that will help a person decide what kind of skincare serum to add to their routine? Here we're showing personalized information about how the product fits your particular skincare goals, as well as reviews, potential allergens, or contraindications with other products. You can navigate this information by swiping on your phone screen, and you can look across several products in a display and decide which one you're interested in without needing to touch the bottles themselves. All of this is built to run completely within a web browser without the need to install an app, using standard HTML and CSS along with popular open source frameworks A-Frame and ARJS. And when you've found a serum you like, you can admire its qualities, check to see if there are any allergies you might have to it, before adding it and moving on to the next product in your routine. Second, when you arrive home, you can hold the bottle up to your phone camera to learn how to use it. Using the bottle as a controller and rotating it reveals what the benefits of the ingredients are, as well as clear usage steps. This data doesn't have to be text, it could be video or detailed images. The phone camera is tracking custom fiducial markers, which are contained within the large black boxes on the label. After you've been using the product for a while, we can introduce additional interactions, such as tilt rotations for a customer to leave a review. We can expand upon the content that is shown with personalized recommendations based on our knowledge of your skincare goals, as well as local information, such as the UV index. All of the product information shown is backed by Contentstack's headless content management system and served to our web app with GraphQL. There's a lot more that we'd love to explore and refine here. By its nature, a proof of concept is a tool for starting a conversation. We developed Project Spyglass in the open on GitHub. You can read about our process on Contentstack's blog, or find out more and try it yourself at spyglass.vaultec.engineering.
So that was a little overview of what Project Spyglass is, how it looked like. And indeed, it was built in 4 weeks in total, 3 weeks of development. And I'm going to hand it over to Danielle to tell us how we did it so fast.
Sure. Yeah. So there's a lot that goes into making a proof of concept, but I tried to put this down to 3 main things, focus it a bit. So the first is really defining the core of your experience. What are you trying to do and why? And that why is super important. We spent the first week of development on Spyglass actually ideating, brainstorming, and defining what our use case was going to be. Once you have that core clear vision, you can use it to measure every other decision that you make throughout the course of development. So as you go, in this case, we were using augmented reality, which Jason will talk about a little bit later. But as we went, we might have discovered a few extra features that, oh, this looks neat. Maybe we could add that in. That's fantastic. But would that feature have really helped us deliver on the core vision? And if it didn't, then we skipped it. You have to watch your scope, which leads me into the second one, which is scope management. Again, you really have to understand those goals and that core vision that you define up front to make sure that you don't end up with scope creep throughout the project. When you're trying to do something this quickly, you can't be afraid to say no, because scope creep is your enemy. So you have to understand your vision, you have to understand your team's capabilities, and you have to understand your timeline, and then scope accordingly and continue to look at and review and evaluate your scope as you proceed through development. And then as we move into the third, you can harness the entire team. You want to use every part of your organization, including marketing and everyone else, and really look at agile methods of development. Let other people take care of things, distribute the work, and then iterate on it so that you can free your development team up to build on what they need to do, while you have other people in your organization working on the external story and materials that might be needed to market the work, sell the work later, do these sorts of webinar type things later. So yeah, that's a lot of work, but keep those things in mind as you move forward.
Wonderful. Thanks, Danielle. And let's get even more technical. Jason, will you please tell us about the architecture and the setup behind the scenes?
Thank you, Varya. So as you are attending this seminar, this webinar, you've probably heard of MACH. Contentstack is one of the founding partners of the MACH Alliance. And MACH stands for Microservices-Based, API-First, Cloud-Native Software as a Service, and Headless. And I'll get into each of those in a moment, but this approach to modern software development is one of the ways that we are actually able to get things done very quickly and actually put out a proof of concept. First of all, because Contentstack is a cloud software as a service, multi-tenant, you don't have to spend all the time setting up a local development environment and then setting up some kind of development environment on a server and making sure all the software is configured for your backend before you even get started with other things. It's just a few clicks to set up Contentstack and have a new stack, and then you're ready to go. You've got a REST API and a GraphQL API out of the box, which leads me into the next thing, which is that the APIs are really well documented. If you're software developers, you probably have worked with a lot of software that isn't really well documented, and our team found Contentstack's documentation, frankly, to be a breath of fresh air. Really clear, baby steps kind of documentation that helped walk us through everything that we needed to get set up and to use their system. And that led into modular, because Contentstack provided the backend, and we could have people working on the backend in Contentstack, setting up the content types, which then we'll get into in the next section. And we could focus on building the front end to that, which is leading into the tech agnostic. You could make any kind of front end that could be served by this backend that you've created in Contentstack. So while we made an augmented reality demo to show off things and make it a little bit whiz bang, this same data that we've set up, all the product data that we set up in Contentstack, could be used to serve a website or even Internet of Things in a store or a mobile app. This mock approach really was helpful. And now I'll get into the actual architecture of how we set this up. we talked about how this was set up in multiple scenarios, both in the store as well as when you take it home. And so as you walk through each of those scenarios, each of those, since we were trying to move really fast, we set them up as separate web pages. And there was a launcher that was set up to launch those web pages. The technology that we used for each of these was something called ARJS. It's a library that lets you layer 3D content on top of the camera image from your mobile device. But this also used under the hood 3JS, which is a WebGL 3D engine. And there's a wrapper around that called A-Frame that lets you describe a 3D scene in HTML-like syntax. And we found we were able to use this to really quickly assemble the 3D content that we wanted to throw up there and modify it. We could write some custom extensions to A-Frame that allowed us to smooth the development and get things up and running quickly. ARJS was designed to work so that it was the only thing in the browser's viewport. And we needed it for some of the things that you saw in the video to interact with 2D content that was overlaid in HTML and CSS. So we had to make a custom ARJS build. And one of the nice things about Contentstack is not only could it host all of our data, but it could host all of our assets. And so we were able to host things like the custom ARJS build JavaScript file, as well as pattern markers, image assets, and then all of the actual product content in Contentstack. And then we set up, in addition to all of our JavaScript for each of the scenarios, we set up a data controller that pulled down all of this through a GraphQL API from Contentstack, and then served up things from a local JSON data store that was simulating the personalized content that we wouldn't normally put in Contentstack. And as Danielle talked about, this was very fast, and we worked because Contentstack allowed us to work in this modular tech agnostic fashion, we were able to do a lot of quick spikes of sketches of code. So we had one spike where we got the Contentstack API working for REST and then GraphQL, and we were able to evaluate the two and decide that we wanted to go with GraphQL. We were able to spin up things where we were testing one aspect and then another and still be using the same backend or just be working independently. And you can see all of this in our GitHub repo. But I'll pass this off to Ben, and he will talk about the Contentstack side of things and how we actually built all of the content in Contentstack.
Awesome. So we're looking at Contentstack here. And as Jason was saying, one of the things that's really nice about Headless is we don't have to worry about the source of our content for any development project we're doing now. So with older systems, if I wanted to reuse content, I would have to either find a system that let me build an API on top of it and then pull out the HTML and then pull out the content I actually wanted and then map it into my application, or I'd use dummy data and figure out how to connect it later, or dev's going to be responsible for updating content in the application forever, which isn't exactly a fun thing to do. Instead, in Contentstack, we store all of the data for every viewport or front end in the same place, so the teams that are creating it can learn one system and create a bunch of content, and whatever new experience we want to roll out, we can just connect to that same database of content. So what we're looking at here is our content types. And these are just the structures that the content takes that I'm then going to request out via API. So in here we have the categories, ingredients, product information. If I take a look in any of these, you can see the different fields that are included as part of this piece of content. So if I wanted to change the structure or add additional information to this type of content, all I have to do is add a field, what kind of data I want to store as part of this piece of content. And what Contentstack does is it handles creating that database, backing it up, all that fun stuff from the SaaS side of things. It also generates the API and then puts that on top of a CDN so that you don't have to worry about performance internationally. And it adds the interface so that the non-technical users can come in and manipulate that data really easily. So just to quickly take a look at that, we can see here all the different entries of all those different content types. And for the non-technical user, it doesn't matter where this is going to end up being used. They can hop into any piece of content, change it, manipulate it, delete it, add new ones, all without having to go to dev first. And we can take a look over here at what this actually looks like when I pull it out via API. So all of this data is always stored in JSON. It's always delivered in JSON, which makes it really easy to use no matter what technology I'm trying to connect to it. We have customers that are pushing stuff like here to an AR application. They push it to print systems, so it gets imported into a template and then printed out and mailed to people, in-store kiosks, you name it, we can connect to it. And what's also nice from the actual development standpoint is you're not waiting on a back-end team to manipulate some database and then expose it via API. Instead, when you're developing and you want to create a new component, you can just hop into Contentstack, modify the content type a little bit, and it's already available for you to develop that new front-end component that you want. We're looking here at the RESTful response. We have RESTful and GraphQL. So this data is exposed in both of those ways. And then I guess I should show you what this kind of looks like when we actually pull in a component, but I'm going to do that in a different account because the Spyglass demo is live for people internationally to use right now, and I don't want to accidentally mess that up. So I'm going to pull in here just a different application. And in here, I can go take a look at my homepage content. And this is all the content I need for my homepage. If we go look at that entry, we can see in here the actual content that's currently being displayed, and then how it's being displayed on the front end. So everything on this page is being pulled from Contentstack just via JSON and populated into a template.
Again, we hope this is inspirational and get you thinking, and also get an understanding how easy it is these days to build something new at a very high pace and work together with your developers and your business teams at the same time. So we're looking forward to working on your Project Spyglass. Feel free to reach out to either Vaultec or to Contentstack, and we're happy to set things up quickly.